Kirk. I am founder of Turning Point USA. We are the organization that put on this event today. As you see, there's materials on your seat that you sat down. We're doing a lot of unique things that I will go into more detail a little bit later. Unfortunately, I got a call yesterday from Helene. Joe had some issues he had to deal with, so he won't be able to be here today. And Helene, you want to come up and we can...
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here, but I'm really sorry that Joe couldn't be here, but not as sorry as Joe is. Those who know him well know that he does not like to miss an event, but there was a family emergency, and he had to leave town early yesterday morning, and I hope he'll get back either tonight or tomorrow. So I apologize on his behalf, and he apologizes, of course. Thank you all for being here, and it's so nice to see so many new faces and a lot of young faces. There's a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of work that you need to do for yourselves because your future is in your hands ultimately. Thank you for continuing to become educated and informed and getting involved. And hopefully we can plan another event where Joe, and this is so rare, this is the first time I can tell you in forever that Joe has had to not attend an event where he was scheduled to speak. So I apologize on his behalf again, and thank you for being here. And thank you to Mr. Steve Tucker.
Yeah, so Steve Tucker is going to fill in. Those of you that heard him before, you know he's rather enlightening and knows that he knows a lot about healthcare, how it affects you. So he's going to kind of bring it down to a student basis. How is the new healthcare law going to affect students, and especially student loans? Because very few people know that the new Obamacare bill actually took over the entire student loan industry, which is going to affect in a lot of different ways. But kind of to elaborate more on what our organization does, Turning Point USA founded it back June 5th of last year, and it's been a whirlwind to say the least. We've done a lot of unique things. We hosted a debate at the University of Wisconsin-Madison because we were thinking, you know, what's the most liberal university we could find? So we chose the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We've done a lot of other unique things. I had a chance to speak and MC at CPAC. I introduced Governor Walker. We're organizing groups all across the country using social media and Facebook and Twitter. And really quick, I want to give a round of applause to Crystal, who helped plan this entire event. This entire thing was student-run, student-organized, student-promoted. Of course, we do have adults that help us out, but this is a student-run organization, and because of that, we have a different perspective. I have a funny story. I was at CPAC, and a gentleman went up to the podium. It was the second day of CPAC, and he was about 68 years old, and he had white hair. He's kind of limping around. He gets up to the podium, and he says, "We here at the Young Americans Foundation are very..." I said, "Hold on a second, wait." And right then and there it hit me. That's exactly what's wrong with the youth movement among the conservative cause. We don't have the young people taking leadership roles. We've fallen behind in social media, in campus organization, information sharing, behavioral modeling, all that good stuff. And that's what we're taking the charge. We're doing a very unique outreach. So if you want to look at this right now, I'm sure you sat on it. It's a one of a kind. And through a collaboration of students, is John here? John Schmidt. There's John. John helped write this. He goes to the University of Chicago, which used to be a very good free market university, but it's kind of recently swayed towards other thinking. But this right here is what we like to call intellectual ammunition. It gives students the facts and figures they need to be able to debate anybody, anytime about some economic fallacies. In this book is some amazing information, amazing stats, figures, and statistics that can give you some basic ways to refute any economic misnomer. It goes from, who's ever heard that World War II ended the Great Depression? You've heard that? In here, it will give you some great stats, figures, and statistics that will not necessarily disprove, but problematize that notion that government was the sole ending purpose of the Great Depression. Some other things that we're doing is back in January, we released the first ever student debt clock, which calculates each student's share of the national debt. Does anybody want to cheat and tell me how much it is? Or guess?
17 trillion.
Well, that's our total national debt. Believe it or not, it's over $840,000 per student that you owe to the federal government. And that's increasing every single day. This was, what? Michael, this was on Friday? I think it was Friday we made this. I think it's about $841,000. This is your liberty contracting and contracting every single day. And this is a problem that has been created by Republicans and Democrats alike, and it's because we haven't had backbone, we haven't stood by the Constitution. And that's what Turning Point USA is. We are not Republicans, we are not Democrats, we are fighting for our future. It's just that simple, and that's the way we need to approach it. I'm honored to be able to introduce Tucker today. I met Tucker at an event about a year ago at Benedictine University, where together we got to debate the Occupy Wall Street crowd. And do you think we won that? Do you think we won that debate, Tucker? I think we won it on all fronts: emotional front, statistical front. Well, I want to say one last thing before I hand over the stage to Tucker. When we debate as a cause, a free market cause, we too often get caught up in the statistics and the facts, and we don't make the moral argument. Okay? We don't make the case that it's the right thing to have free markets. And I think it's because it's a harder argument to make, and we as intellectual individuals, we stray towards the statistics. Oh, the unemployment rate is such, right? Or the national debt. But if you talk to a lot of young people, it doesn't connect. But if you make a moral argument and you say capitalism defends private property rights, capitalism is the number one reason why we're seeing poverty levels decrease over the last 100 years. Free markets is the reason why people have been lifted out of poverty. If you hate poverty, if you talk to a liberal and they hate poverty, they should love free markets. Because it's not because of government that people have gotten out of free markets. So we cannot forget that the fiscal issues are actually very rooted in moral standards and moral traditions. We cannot forget that when we argue. And with that, again, I encourage you all to check out our website. There's one last thing I forgot. There's another piece of paper, balancedclassroom.org. We released that on Tuesday of last week. It's amazing what we're doing. Inspired by a young kid, I call him a kid because I'm 19, and he's 15, in Appleton, Wisconsin. He was ostracized by his teachers because he was conservative. He was called stupid, dumb, you stupid Republican. He made 22,000 phone calls for Governor Walker up in Wisconsin. He was ostracized for that belief. And this amazing kid, Benji Backer, who was a part of our organization, took a stand against his teachers, exposed it. He was on Megyn Kelly, lucky, a week and a half ago. And because of that, not only has he exposed it, but he's taken the extra step. And through our organization, we have released reform. And on balancedclassroom.org, we have a universal resolution that school board members all across the country can download and pass respectively in their school districts. And what it does is it says that any teacher that isolates an individual due to political, religious, or personal beliefs should be reprimanded, not terminated, but reprimanded in front of a teacher or a school district review board. And we're going to have this passed in Appleton, Wisconsin, the very same district where this individual, this 15-year-old, was called out for his activism, that he was bullied every single day for being a conservative. And when we pass that reform, we're going to be one of the few youth organizations that can actually say, hey, we're doing something to fix the problem, because we can't get to a balanced budget unless we have a balanced classroom. And with that, I am honored to introduce one of my favorite speakers to listen to and to hear from, to learn from. C.Steven Tucker has been speaking on healthcare since it was jammed down our throats in 2010. And what's really unique about Tucker is, we hear from Rush Limbaugh about healthcare, we hear about Glenn Beck from healthcare, but rarely do we ever hear about a health insurance agent or somebody who's in the health insurance industry. And now that Obamacare is going to be implemented, and there's still things that governors can do, we need to learn what to expect, how to fight it, and especially us as students, how much are we going to have to do to pay for it. So with that, it's my great honor to introduce Mr. C.Steven Tucker. Thank you.
This is your new healthcare system. Except, of course, for this, which was repealed. That's the Class Act. And except, of course, over here for co-ops, which ran out of money. And, of course, over here, the PCIP, which is the pre-existing condition insurance plan, that just ran out of money March 5th. So 3 essential parts of this healthcare law have already crumbled upon themselves. And the first thing I want to tell you, and so you can tell everyone, everywhere, is that the President of the United States, right now, is denying coverage for pre-existing conditions for Americans all over this country. As of March 5th, his pre-existing condition insurance plan simply ran out of money. And most policy wonks like myself, healthcare geeks, we could see it way ahead of time. Any actuary could see $5 million is not going to be enough money. Because here's what it was designed to do. The healthcare law restricts insurance companies from, quote, discriminating against you based on pre-existing conditions starting January 1st, 2014. But from 2010, when the healthcare law passed, till 2014, they could still do that, right, on individual policies. So the PCIP was funded so that Americans could come to this risk pool, federal risk pool, and get health insurance without regard to pre-existing conditions. The problem is it didn't work like our existing risk pools. We have risk pools in 35 states, high-risk health insurance pools. We also have guaranteed issue individual mandates in 10 other states. Each of these pools require you to have proof of prior coverage under federal HIPAA law. So you can't just wait until you're sick and then jump on the plan and expect the plan to cover all your conditions. You have to prove you've been consistently insured and you've had no lapse between health insurance policies of more than 63 days. So that's protected 90% of the American insured. This pool would allow you to have no prior coverage, wait until you're sick, and then get on. So what was supposed to last 4 years lasted just under 2 years and ran out of money. Here's the thing that will really frustrate you. The Republican Party right now is trying to pass legislation as we speak to refund that program with another $4 billion. I did not say Democrats. Republicans right now are trying to pass legislation to prop up a broken part of Obamacare to make it work better. That should really upset you, because Republicans should be doing everything they can to stop this law, not refund it and make it look better after it fails. But that's what's going on. So, how in God's name do we get to this? What happened? How do we do it? Well, there were a lot of special interest groups, many of them left-leaning, but it really took one man to sell it to the nation. One man who could sell ice to an Eskimo in the blizzard. And that was none other than our current president, Barack Obama. So I'm going to just give you a few little things where you can watch the president, because you know, it's been a long time and you kind of forget, oh, did he really say that? I can't believe that. So for the last 4 years, I've been traveling around the Midwest saying, you know, basically quoting the president, right? So here, I'm not going to quote the president. I'm going to let you watch the president speak to you. First of all, the American uninsured. One of the biggest statements that were made before the law passed was that there are 50 million uninsured in this country. There are 45 million uninsured in this country. And actually, right before the health care law passed, Anthony Weiner said that there are 100 million people that are uninsured in this country. The one question that wasn't asked is, let's agree that there's 45 million people. In fact, the U.S. Census Bureau says there's 45 million people who are uninsured in this country. Who are these people? Who comprise the 45 million uninsured? So the U.S. Census Bureau, not Fox News, not my blog, the U.S. Census Bureau says that there are 45 million uninsured. 17 million of them make more than $50,000 a year. Should taxpayers be buying them health insurance? No, they should be purchasing their own health insurance. 9 million make more than $75,000 a year. Should taxpayers be buying their health insurance? No, they should be buying their own health insurance. 18 million are the young invincibles, of which I see many of you in the audience today. This is the first speech I've given on this healthcare law where I'm addressing the people who will actually be paying for all of this. Because it's not going to be me, it's not going to be the senior citizens of this audience, it's going to be our youth, and your children, and your grandchildren. You'll all be paying for it. So 18 million of you spend more money on alcohol, tobacco, going out to the movies, having dinner, than you do purchasing health insurance. Why? Because you are young, invincible. You know, statistically and actuarially, you probably won't have a claim for many decades. That's why your premiums are lower than anybody else's, right? Many of you go uninsured because of EMTLA. Steve, what the heck is EMTLA? EMTLA is an acronym that stands for a law that President Reagan passed. Reagan is my favorite president, but he wasn't perfect. In fact, far from it. And he passed EMTLA that says that if you are within 250 yards of any emergency room in this country, no matter if you're a U.S. citizen or not, no matter if you have health insurance or not, they must treat you, and the taxpayer must pay for it. So many children know that they're not going to be denied care if they're really sick in some emergency situation. The American hospitals are going to care for them. If you can't pay for it, they'll put it back on the taxpayer. That's 18 million of the 45 million. 14 million without health insurance today are already eligible for government programs like Medicare and S-CHIP, but they just never got around to applying, right? So we whittle all of them down. Oh, remember they kept saying 45 million American uninsured? 12 million are not Americans. They're illegal immigrants. So you whittle down all the data. The real number of chronically uninsured people in this nation are 8 million people. Now, every year in our American healthcare system, we waste $750 billion. Did you know that if you ask the federal government to be half efficient, because they'll never be fully efficient, because they're not using their money. Let's say they're just half efficient. If you cut half of that waste, you could buy 100 million people a health insurance plan that would make the CEOs of Blue Cross Blue Shield green with envy. Zero deductible, zero copay for the rest of their life. So if we can cut waste instead of spending $2.6 trillion. Where did I get that number? Oh, that's the CBO's latest assessment of what this law will cost us over the first 10 years. The president sold it saying it would only cost $960 billion. Then they looked at it again. It's going to cost $2.6 trillion. So instead of spending that money, why can't we make our healthcare system more efficient? And we can do so. Now, how else do we get there? The president is the greatest liar since the father of the lie. No one lies better than Barack Obama. And I'm going to show you. Here's one of his first lies he told to a joint session of Congress about the evils of the health insurance industry. Watch.
One man from Illinois lost his coverage in the middle of chemotherapy because his insurer found that he hadn't reported gallstones that he didn't even know about. They delayed his treatment, and he died because of it. Another woman from Texas was about to get a double mastectomy when her insurance company canceled her policy because she forgot to declare a case of acne. By the time she had her insurance reinstated, her breast cancer had more than doubled in size. That is heartbreaking, it is wrong,
And it's also a lie. The truth, not from Fox News, not from my blog, but from ABC News, which is one part of the left-wing cabal that runs information in this country. They are certainly not right-leaning. ABC News gives us a story of that woman who had her health insurance canceled because she had acne, right? Oh, that's not true. President Obama's description, I'm reading from the article, President Obama's description that Robin Beaton, that was her name, insurance company canceled her policy because she forgot to declare a case of acne is not accurate. As Beaton's Congressman Rep. Joe Barton of Texas testified, the Blue Cross Blue Shield letter informed Ms. Beaton that an investigation into her claims for benefits resulted in the company reviewing her medical records, in which they discovered she had misinformed them on several pieces of information. One of them was that she did not list her height and weight correctly. The other was a pre-existing heart condition. So President Obama just skipped all that part and said she went to the doctor for acne and they canceled her policy. It's a lie. Did the president lie to us again? Is it possible? Just think about it. Would you buy health insurance if the insurance company could cancel you the moment you get sick? Would you buy homeowners insurance if they could cancel your homeowners policy once your house burns down? Would you buy car insurance if the car insurance company could cancel your coverage once you wreck your car? No. It's been illegal since Public Law 104-191 was passed in 1996. Steve, what's Public Law 104-191? HIPAA law. Who's heard of HIPAA law? What's the one thing you hear about or you think about when you hear HIPAA?
Privacy.
Privacy. Nobody talks about portability. In fact, the third word in the acronym HIPPA, right? PAA is portability. Portability is far more important than privacy. Portability has protected 90% of the American insured who have group health insurance policies. Employer-sponsored group. How do you know this is true before I even explain to you how it works? Has anyone in this room, by a show of hands, ever had an employer ask them how heavy they were? How many medications you're on? Does your family have a history of heart disease? Anyone? No. You did, sir? The employer's breaking the law. The federal law is you cannot ask these questions because it's illegal to do so. They cannot discriminate against you based on pre-existing conditions so long as you have a group health insurance plan. Where pre-existing conditions came from were not from the insurance industry. Pre-existing conditions were created by Congress. When Congress wrote 1996 HIPAA law, they did not extend any portability for coverage for pre-existing conditions to individual policyholders. Now, back in 96, that wasn't 14 million Americans. It is now 14 million self-employed Americans who buy their health insurance on the individual market, do not have an employer-sponsored plan. And they can be denied coverage for pre-existing conditions because they're too heavy, because they smoke too much, because they have a family history of heart disease. They can be. That's Congress's fault, not the insurance company's fault. And you know how you fix that? Not 2,700 pages double space, as is the healthcare law, or 960 pages single space. One sentence added to existing HIPAA portability law that states the following. All individual health insurance plans are now protected under existing HIPAA portability law, and you have solved pre-existing conditions forever. So if we can do it with one sentence, not even one piece of paper, what are the other 2,600 pages about? We're going to get into that. But there's one overall theme: control. Would the president lie to us again?
And now some fresh pickings from the political grapevine. It appears President Obama got it wrong when he talked about a man who supposedly died because his insurance company canceled his coverage. The president told the story during his speech to a joint session of Congress last week. Quote, one man from Illinois lost his coverage in the middle of chemotherapy because his insurer found that he hadn't reported gallstones that he didn't even know about. They delayed his treatment and he died because of it. But the Wall Street Journal reports Otto Raditz did not die because of delays. His insurance policy was reinstated within 3 weeks, and he later received a stem cell transplant. Raditz died this year, nearly 4 years after the initial problems with his insurer. His sister told the House Energy and Commerce Oversight Committee in June that her brother received treatment that, quote, extended his life approximately 3 years.
Oops, he got that one wrong. Now, you may say, as some of our friends on the left have addressed me in prior speeches, when I say friends of our left, I want to make it clear, I have none. Nevertheless, they like to call into question the fact that I'm bringing this information up and that the president is, and I'm quoting, very busy, he has a lot on his mind, and he just simply got it wrong. The reality is,
He played golf.
the Peggy Raditz, which was Otto Raditz's sister, testified only 90 days before Barack Obama told this lie to a joint session of Congress that Assurant Health Insurance Company in Milwaukee, Wisconsin saved her brother's life by paying for a bone marrow transplant that extended that life for 3 more years. They never canceled his coverage, and they paid all of his claims. Would the president lie to us again? Would he lie about his own mother? His own mother. President Obama said in 2008 that his mom wasn't a wealthy woman. He said that his mother battled with her health insurance company that refused to pay her medical bills while she was dying of cancer. He said because his mother's health insurance company would not pay her medical bills, she was drained of all her resources. This all must be true because Tom Hanks said so in the documentary film, The Road We've Traveled, about Barack Obama. Let's watch a clip from that, shall we?
But he knew from experience the cost of waiting.
When my mom got cancer, she wasn't a wealthy woman, and it pretty much drained all her resources.
She developed ovarian cancer, never really had good, consistent insurance. That's a tough thing to deal with, watching your mother die of something that could have been prevented. I don't think he wants to see anyone go through that.
And he remembered the millions of families like his who feel the pressure of rising costs and the fear of being denied or dropped from coverage.
I'm just getting verklempt watching it. It's so powerful. Too bad it's a bald-faced lie. This, again, is not Fox News, it's not my blog, it's the Washington Post, which gives that particular lie 3 Pinocchios. Okay? Here's the truth. Tom Hanks says the president knew the costs of waiting on reform. The truth was that she did not have problems with the health insurance policy. In fact, she was insured through her employer with great major medical health insurance, which paid all of her medical claims. The only problem she had was with her disability policy. Disability pays your mortgage when you're laid up in the hospital. Has nothing to do with your health insurance bills. Nothing. So, the president says cancer drained her mother of all her resources and that she was not a wealthy woman. First of all, the health insurance company paid all of her claims. So she did not have her resources drained. But he also said she was an indigent woman who didn't have a lot of money. In reality, the company she worked for at the time, in 1995, paid her $82,500 a year. If you extrapolate that out with inflation, that's $123,000 today. Is that an indigent woman? No. The president lied again. Then Michelle Obama says that she never had good health insurance. She did have good health insurance. Now, over the last 4 years, one of our friends on the left, which I have none, likes to stand up at the back of the audience and say, Mr. President didn't really lie. I mean, he's very busy. He couldn't possibly know that. And my answer to them is always the same. Do you know who the attorney was that represented Ann Dunham, Barack Obama's mother, fighting against Cigna for her disability coverage? It was a young attorney with a penchant for lying, Barack Obama. So there's no way he could not have known, because he represented her in her battle for disability coverage with Cigna. So the president lied again. We talked about HIPAA law and how it protects group policyholders and how we extend it to individual policyholders, and we solve pre-existing conditions. We talked about how the health care law was written. First of all, what did we have in states before? The president loves to say this: if you're denied coverage for health insurance, you're left with no option. The truth is, in 10 states, we had high-risk health insurance pools. Steve, what's a high-risk health insurance pool? In Illinois, we call it ICHIP, the Illinois Comprehensive Health Insurance Plan. And here's how it works. If you're an insurance carrier, you come into Illinois or 34 other states, and you want to offer health insurance, you must give a percentage of your profits every year to a pool of money. And that pool of money will be managed by the state, and it is for people who cannot qualify for your products, who are too sick. They can go to ICHIP, they get a Blue Cross Blue Shield card. This has been going on for decades right here in Illinois. And they cannot be denied coverage for pre-existing conditions. In 10 other states, I'll give you Ohio as an example, they have a guaranteed issue individual mandate. How does that work? Here's how it works. Once a year, insurance companies are mandated by the Department of Insurance in Ohio to open their books to anyone, no matter how sick they are. And they must give them coverage. And they must do so to 4% of their block of business every year. So if the biggest carrier in the country, UnitedHealthcare, runs out of that 4% and maxes it out for sick people, they give you the number to their nearest competitor, Humana. Humana has to max out 4%. Humana then refers you to Celtic if Humana's 4% is blocked, right? There are 20 carriers in Ohio. Ohio has never maxed out 4% for every carrier, not even close. And everybody in Ohio has coverage for pre-existing conditions. Isn't that a great idea? Well, that's what HHS has decided to do. My first speech I ever gave was in 2010 in Chicago, and I made that correlation between HIPAA law, group and individual policies, solving it with one sentence. Somebody at HHS must have heard me, because in 2011, they decided to fix their law. Understand how it was written. It was written where you could wait until you are sick to buy a health insurance plan. That health insurance plan has to give you coverage. It's the same thing that happened in Massachusetts under Mitt Romney. People were buying health insurance in the emergency room. Because why would you maintain a health insurance policy when you can get it whenever you're sick, right? Guess how long they keep that policy? For as long as they need treatment. Then they cancel it, and they get another one when they get sick again. That is actuarially impossible to maintain. Insurance is about the management of future risk, not the assumption of all risk as it occurs. So this is what they did under Mitt Romney. It was changed dramatically under Governor Devil Patrick when he took over. But what happened was the insurance companies were leaving Massachusetts, and others were going bankrupt because they were assuming all risk as it occurs. That's how Obamacare, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, was written. In 2011, they changed the law. Here's how it will work now. As it was written, it would have created adverse selection. Adverse selection is insurance company insuring you without knowing the whole truth, right? The insurance companies go to great detail to make sure they know as much about you as possible before they agree to assume your risk, right? So HHS proposed a new solution on July 15, 2011. And what they're going to do now is do what Massachusetts did, and do what Medicare does, and do what Ohio did with their guaranteed issue open enrollments. Once a year now. You can no longer game the system with Obamacare, folks. You have a one-period window every year now. This year it starts October 1st, where you can go to any health insurance carrier in the nation, and they must cover you, regardless of pre-existing conditions. That's called an open enrollment period. That begins on October 1st of this year. It ends on March 31st of 2014. After that, if you have a pre-existing condition, you will not be able to get coverage if you do not have employer-sponsored group health insurance. The next time you can try, again, will be October 1st of 2015, and it will last until 12/31/2015. So it will emulate Medicare. Who's familiar with Medicare open enrollment? Medicare open enrollment, Part C, Part D. You can't get them anytime. You get them during open enrollment or special enrollment periods. All health insurance will now work that way in the U.S. That is a massive improvement to the law, because now you can't game the system. Jump on, jump off, jump on, jump off, and bankrupt the insurance companies. I applaud the change. The problem is, there's still going to be a ton of adverse selection. And I'll explain to you why. Will you be able to keep your health care plan, Mr. President?
We will keep this promise to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan, period.
First of all, if you've got health insurance, you like your doctor, you like your plan, you can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan. Nobody is talking about taking that away from you.
No matter what you've heard, if you like your doctor or health care plan, you can keep it. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like your private health insurance plan, you can keep your plan, period. If you are among the hundreds of millions of Americans who already have health insurance through your job, or Medicare, or Medicaid, or the VA, nothing in this plan will require you or your employer to change the coverage of the doctor you have. Let me repeat this. Nothing in our plan requires you to change what you have. Our approach would preserve the right of Americans who have insurance to keep their doctor.
I can't take it anymore. The reason I re-looped that and put timestamps on it is because the president really believes that he can repeat a lie over and over and over again, and eventually you're going to believe it. The truth is, it was a lie from the beginning. On 9/23/2010, Obamacare medical loss ratios kicked in. What are those? This is a new law that states that if you're a health insurance company and you underwrite 50 or less people, right, you have to reduce your operating margin, not your profit margin. Your total operating margin, what it takes to be a health insurance company, salaries to your employers, overhead, shareholders' profits, all the things you do, and the massive reserves you have to keep in place by state and federal requirement in case big claims happen. All that's got to be reduced by 1/1/2011. So they had less than 3 months to do it. So the first thing Humana did was fire thousands of employees. That was the first thing that happened. The second thing happened is that insurance companies started dropping out. No longer offering health insurance, closing their doors. And the sad part is out of all the companies that have done it, we have here, I've just shown 11, there's another 13 in the state of Iowa that have closed their doors. These were the companies I could offer for the last 20 years with the good prices because they didn't have the big overhead. Well, they also had the lowest operating margins. So they had to watch their operating margins very closely. Barack Obama took that operating margin from 25 or 30% down to 15% in less than 3 months. And they simply closed their doors. So unlike what the president promised, if you like your plan, you can keep your plan. He lied. You cannot. And thousands of Americans have already lost their plans because what happens when your insurance company goes out of business? Is your plan still there? No. It's gone. According to the CBO, 14.4 million more people will lose their health insurance plans. I'm predicting 40 million people.
Wow.
Why? Because the fine for an employer for not buying health insurance is $2,000 a year. I have employers who I insure right now who would kill to pay $2,000 a year only for health insurance. It would be a gift from God. So why would they maintain health insurance, especially expensive health insurance, Obamacare approved health insurance? They wouldn't. They're going to pay the fine. Watch for 40 million people to lose their health insurance plans. What happens when a person loses their health insurance plan and they're going through cancer? What happens? Guarantee Trust Life Insurance Company on Milwaukee Avenue in Glenview, not far from here, sent this letter to one of my clients who I met with 10 years ago, who had a traditional health insurance plan, which had a deductible for each person, a nice low copay, low deductible, and they were paying a fortune for it. I introduced to them the concept of a medical IRA, which today we call health savings accounts. They loved the idea. They were saving $200 a month, and that $200 a month they put into a health savings account, which is called a medical IRA, and every year you don't use it, you don't lose it, it rolls over to the following year. Fast forward 13 years, Obamacare passes, that family is sitting on $52,000 in tax-deferred funds, money that would have went to an insurance company for a low copay, low deductible plan. They were healthy all those years. Obamacare passes, Guarantee Trust Life goes out of business. Sends her the following letter. The purpose of this letter is to provide you with important information regarding your major medical coverage with Guarantee Trust Life Insurance Company. The letter is intended to provide notice of an action Guarantee Trust will be taking that will result in the termination of all major medical plans in your state. Will I be offered a replacement plan? When I met with that family 13 years ago when they were healthy, they bought a $5,000 deductible for the whole family to share. Once that $5,000 was satisfied, the plan would pay 100% for all of their lives, all the way up to $8 million per person. They loved the plan. Here was their replacement plan. Will I be offered a replacement plan? Yes, we're required by law in the terms of your policy to offer you replacement coverage. The replacement plan will be a high deductible major medical plan. This high deductible major medical plan will be a type of plan that doesn't begin to pay for covered charges until such charges exceed your new deductible of $25,000 per person. This was not an HSA qualified plan. So the president lied, and his lies have ramifications, especially to sick people. Do you know where I had to put her? On our high-risk health insurance pool, which I just explained to you how it works. The problem is, she gave up $8 million of coverage to get $1 million of coverage through our risk pool at the time. Because of no other reason than Barack Obama's lies and his health care law.
I also have a health care plan that would save the average family $2,500 on their premium.
Really? Is that true?
No.
A study just came out by the Society of Actuaries in March of this year. They ran the numbers. This is where your health insurance premiums will be going, thanks to Obamacare, for individual plans. Wisconsin, 80%. Illinois, 51%. All you young people, not just you young people, everybody, you're going to be paying 50% more. I want you to know what else is going on. I get internal memos all the time from all these companies that I rep, and I rep every health insurance carrier in the country, every reputable carrier. And they send us these memos and these seminars and webinars, and they're trying to predict what's going to happen after 2014. Health insurance companies have the option to participate inside the exchange. They can say, we're not going to go in the exchange. We're going to stay outside of the exchange. If they go into the exchange, then every product they offer outside of the exchange must be commensurate in every detail, which means that all the mandates, including abortion pills, everything they've put on that's not medically necessary, it all must be included inside and outside the plan, which means that they won't be able to vary those plans in any way. Okay? So individuals, for instance, in the exchange, gold, silver, bronze, or platinum, you gotta have a $2,000 deductible, no higher. Family, $4,000, no higher. When you set deductibles low, you don't give the client the ability to change those deductibles, you're stuck with one price. So United Health One, the biggest individual carrier in the nation, has decided not to go in the exchange, which is a big thing for the industry. Oh my God, the biggest carrier in the country, they're not going to the exchange? Why would they go in the exchange? Here's why. Humana, by the way, is. And here's what's going to happen when Humana policies that are purchased today renew in 2014. Because they have a product in the exchange now, all those products have to conform with the bronze, silver, gold, and platinum plans. When they conform, Humana is saying, look for minimum of 100% premium increases on your policy that you're paying today. United Health One is saying, we're not going in the exchange, so we can design products differently outside the exchange. We're looking at 15% or less. So it's wise for insurance carriers to stay out of the exchange.
So let me talk about the third thing,
This is right.
which is my proposal would bring down the cost of health care for families, for businesses, and for the federal government. So Americans buying comparable coverage to what they have today, I already said this, would see premiums fall by 14 to 20%. That's not my numbers, that's what the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office says. For Americans who get their insurance through the workplace, how many people are getting insurance through their jobs right now? Raise your hands. All right, well, a lot of those folks, your employer, it's estimated, would see premiums fall by as much as 3,000%, which means they could give you a raise.
What? How does a plan drop by 3,000%?
Because he doesn't have a concept what how many insurance companies work.
It's impossible for a plan to drop by 3,000%. But he promised it. Here's what's happening in the group arena. In the group arena, my health insurance clients, Blue Cross Blue Shield, I'm just using Blue Cross because we all know Blue Cross, These are the lowest increases they got after the medical loss ratios kicked in. 31.35%, 35.63%, and 44.78%. And they're calling me screaming, my God, what happened? Did you vote for Barack Obama? Because that's why it's happening. But the big reason that the premiums are going up, and it's always been this way, in 1979, the total number of federal and state mandates were governors, state regulators, federal regulators said if you sell health insurance in this state, you got to cover leukemia. You got to cover breast cancer. You've got to cover this and this and this and that. And all of them were medically necessary things. The total number nationwide was 279 mandates. Fast forward past Barack Obama's healthcare law, and we're looking at 2,262 mandates. There is no way that there have been 2,000 new medical conditions developed since 1979 that insurance companies have to cover. What they're really asking you to cover is things like Joe Biden's hair plugs, health club memberships, and even in California, all 4 UC campuses, guess what? They mandate that you're covered, the policy has to cover a surgery to turn your outie into an innie. And I don't mean your belly button. Think about that. Yes, that's a mandated covered expense, sexual reassignment surgery. What happens when a state regulator says you got to cover those things? Insurance companies leave. I'm not going to cover that. It's going to drive up the policy for everybody. I'm leaving. There is legislation right now that they're trying to push through the House that will mandate all carriers cover sexual reassignment surgery. Right now, as we speak, nationwide. So, that seems like a lot of mandates, right? 2,262. It looks like a lot of mandates too. Because these are all the mandates nationwide, and this is the reason why health insurance costs so much money. It is the federal and government and state governments mandating things like health club memberships. Let's see what else. Hair plugs, hair prosthesis. What else? You can just go all the way down the line. Let's see. Massage therapist. What else? The list goes on and on. Most of these things are not medically necessary. Some are. A lot of them are not. So when regulators force people to cover things like an athletic trainer, right? Why am I paying for an athletic trainer? And in Illinois, for example, you pay about 30% more in Illinois to cover for infertility, because that law was passed before Obamacare. Even if you don't have the proper plumbing below your navel ever to have a child, you have to pay that much more. So it is always mandates to drive the cost of health insurance. But it's also regulations. Since Obamacare was passed, 20,000 new pages, not regulations, pages of regulations have been written. The worst piece of verbiage in the legislation is the Secretary shall. It gives the Secretary of HHS the power to rewrite law and write new law and fix the law like they did with pre-existing conditions. What does 20,000 pages of new regulations look like? That. And there's that playing in the NBA. Because it's 7 feet, 2.5 inches tall. That's how many regulations that have been passed so far. And they're writing more and more every month. Here's how this all works and why health insurance gets more and more expensive. It is a vicious cycle. The government subsidizes health insurance, right? So the consumer has no idea what the cost of health insurance is because the government's subsidizing it. Consumers become insensitive to health costs. It's so funny when I meet with an employer and I tell the employer, do a defined contribution, don't do a defined benefit. And they look at me cockeyed, what? Don't buy one group health insurance policy for all your employees. Because one, it can be rated by 67%, right? But also because it's one plan for everybody. There's no variance, there's no details. If somebody gets sick, everybody pays more because you're all in the same plan. Instead of that, offer a defined contribution. You're an employee only, I give you $200 a month. Go find health insurance. Your employee spouse, I give you $500 a month. Go find health insurance. You're a family, I'll give you $700 a month. Go find health insurance, right? That way the employer can control his health care costs every year because he or she is setting those costs, not the insurance company. Here's the conversation. When someone who has done the right thing, an employee of an employer I've spoken with that offers a defined contribution instead of a defined benefit, They call me when their 90 days are up for new health insurance. They've been at the company for 90 days. They go, Mr. Tucker, I'm over at ABC Company. It's been 91 days. I'm eligible for health insurance now. What can I get for $200? If dental is $8 more a month, they'll forego dental because they got to stay under $200 a month. If it's an employee from a company that did not listen to me and offered one group plan for everybody, they'll call me and say, yeah, I'm at 91 days. I want naturopath, I want maternity coverage, I want zero deductible, I want hair plugs, I want a health club membership. They have no correlation of the real cost of health care. So that is the answer to reforming not only government programs, but also private health insurance. But we're not doing that. We're making consumers insensitive to health costs. It's the same thing with HSAs. We touched on that earlier. John Mackey, who's John Mackey?
Former head of the NFLPA, used to be all-pro with the Baltimore Colts.
Maybe this one's the head of Whole Foods. John Mackey, CEO. You may be right. The CEO of Whole Foods sat down with John Stossel one day, and he did something really radical. He canceled his health insurance plan for all his employees. They picketed him outside of Whole Food markets. You can see this on YouTube. Picketed him. How evil he is. He canceled our health insurance plan. He's an evil CEO, right? What he did was he canceled the traditional health insurance plan, replaced it with an HSA qualified plan. And unlike a lot of CEOs when they do that, he cut his health insurance costs in half. What did he do with that savings when he bought an HSA plan for his employees? He gave that money to each employee. So now if you're wrapping fish for $7 an hour, right? He's giving you that money he was giving the insurance company into a tax-deferred medical savings account for you, right? So John Stossel had him on originally when he was with ABC News, and he had all the pickets and everything else. And so he got his own show, John Stossel, I'm sure some of you know that, on Fox Business. And he had John Mackey come back. And in the audience were only his employees. That's it. And particularly the ones that were picketing him outside the store, right? And they said, here's you guys picketing your CEO 4 years ago. I would like you to say, what do you think about your CEO today? One of them stood up and goes, I love my CEO. Why do you love your CEO? Because I have $12,842 in my HSA account. I love my CEO. I have $8,942. Not only that, but it changed their behavior. So now when they call the doctor and they say, yeah, I'm coming in for a CBC, complete blood count, I need a mammogram, a pap smear. What do you charge? And the doctor's office goes, do you have insurance? Yes, I'll ask you again. What do you charge? Well, I have no idea what we charge. You mean the actual cost? We don't have a concept. Thank you. Click. Calls the next one. What do you charge? Why are they doing that? Because whatever they don't spend, they keep. Do you understand? It changed the entire philosophy. Now they're involved in lowering costs. And that's what HSA qualified plans do. Government doesn't do that. Government does this. Consumers become a sensitive health costs, hospitals expand to reflect increased demand, government spend more than they expected, government cuts payments to doctors, hospitals, and home health care clinics, like Barack Obama just did with the first cut to Medicare of $716 billion. Hospitals charge more to private insurance, cost shifting. That's why an aspirin costs you $5.42. Because the people who don't have health insurance, you're paying for them. You're cost shifting. Private insurance, what do we do in the insurance market? We're just going to raise our premiums, right? Health insurers become less affordable consumers because we raised our premiums because of all the aforementioned perverse behavior. And then we start the vicious cycle again. Government continues to subsidize health insurance down the line, and it's a vicious loop that never ends. This is what's happening. What else is going to drive up health insurance? And I want you kids, you young adults, pay particular attention to this because you're all going to be affected. It's the first pain you're going to feel. What is community rating? Thanks to Justice John Roberts, we now have community rating. It's going to go in every state. Here's how it works, and I want you to detach your skull from your body and just operate with this, because our friends on the left, again, of which I have none, they operate only with their heart. If it feels good, if it's fair, we got to do it. So they come into a state, and they pervade the state, and they go, God, there's some people over here that are paying more for health insurance than these people over here. That's not fair. We got to make it all equal. Everybody should be paying the same health insurance. Doesn't that sound fair, gentlemen? Yeah? That sounds fair. Guess what? Here's what happens. When these people over here are paying smaller premiums, most of them are the young invincibles, right? Because they won't have claims for years, right? So when the liberals come to town and say everybody's got to pay the same premium, guess what happens to them when they start subsidizing Mrs. 62-year-old who's paying $500 a month, and they were paying $85 a month? What happens? Their premiums go up. You know the definition of a split second? It's how long it takes these young gentlemen to cancel their health insurance when they get a $200 monthly increase because they're subsidizing Mrs. 62-year-old, right? And then what happens? All the young invincibles who are there to lower health insurance, guess what happens? They're gone. So what happens over here? Their premiums go up. This is community rating. And this is now going to be spread to every state. And it's not a new concept. It has failed every state it's ever been in. Kentucky, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, Vermont, Washington. They are doubling down on proven failures. In '93, a 30-year-old male and female in New York paid on average annual premiums of $1,200 a year, right? Liberals come to town. 1 month after passing community rating and guaranteed issue, premiums skyrocketed to $3,240, right? New Jersey implemented community rating and guaranteed issue. Premiums increased 50% every year for the next decade because of community rating. Massachusetts in '96 enacted community rating and guaranteed issue. Non-group health insurance reform act. It's always about reform, isn't it? Really? It's really about cost shifting and screwing the taxpayer. Result, 20 health insurance carriers stopped selling coverage for, and the AP reported that before enactment, policies for young people that cost as little as $25 a month soared to $600 a month. This is now the law of the land. The failure continues. Here's what we're looking at. Young people. Community rating impact on young adults. In Chicago, you're going to be paying 202% more than you would pay today for health insurance after 2014. 202% more. Phoenix, 180% more, on and on and on. All going up big time because of community rating. What else is going on? Did you know that they did not have 60 votes in the Senate to pass Obamacare? They did not have it. So they used the reconciliation bill. The reconciliation bill, they named it the Healthcare and Education Reconciliation Act. What they did, as Charlie aptly mentioned, is take over the private student loan industry. There are no more private student loans anywhere in this country. They're all now done by the federal government. Now, when Bank of America or Fifth Third Bank or other private institutions would lend money to students, they would normally require a co-signer because you don't have any credit. You have no collateral because you're a young invincible. So normally what would happen is your mother or father would have to co-sign. When your parents are on the hook for your student loan, you're going to pay that loan back, or you're not going to have a place to live. You have a strong impetus to pay back your student loans. Guess what we've done under Obamacare? There is no requirement required anymore. No co-signer, no credit, no collateral. You can take that loan for all you want. And if you agree to work for a government agency, they'll waive it in 10 years, whether you paid it off or not. If you're in the private sector, it takes 20 years. I wonder why that is. So, all of this money, when they write off that debt, who gets to pay for it when it's written off? The taxpayers. And the most perverse thing is that if you're one of the good students who pays all of your student loans back, you're still going to be paying for the guys who didn't. Because it's all going to be shifted to you. Forward. And how much money are we talking? There are 39 million Americans with student loans holding $1 trillion in debt. Just imagine the interest on that if only a third of them default. So how are we going to fix this, says the federal government, under Obamacare? We're just going to force you to buy health insurance. We're going to force you, by federal law, to buy health insurance or pay a fine. Who's heard of that? That's coming in 2014. Remember I told you that adverse selection will still exist? Here's why. If you don't buy health insurance in 2014, the fine for not doing so is $95 or 1% of your MAGI, Modified Adjusted Gross Income. 1%, okay? It graduates to 2016 to a whopping $685 or 2.5% of your Modified Adjusted Gross Income. Guess what that means? I ran the numbers. Let's see. If you're making $20,000 a year, 2.5% is only $500. Will health insurance in the exchanges be more expensive than $500 a year? Can you say yes? Next, guess where the cutoff is? The cost of health insurance for an individual is going to be between $5,000 and $6,000 a year in the Obamacare exchanges. Did you know you have to be making, can you guys see that? You have to be making $138,000 a year before the fine of 2.5% of your adjusted gross income actually costs you less than the cost of health insurance in the exchange. So are these young invincibles really going to be buying health insurance? No. They're going to be paying the fine, especially since there are no more criminal penalties. Before the law passed, remember, there was a reporter that was in front of Edith the Dingbat Pelosi, and the reporter actually committed a random act of journalism and asked a real question and said, Ms. Pelosi, is it true that you're going to put us in jail if we don't buy health insurance? Because I read that. And Pelosi wouldn't answer the question. You can pull it up on YouTube, right? The truth is, they were going to take a code out of the existing IRS code that if you don't pay your taxes, fines will accrue over 5 years, and eventually, at the 5th year, you become Wesley Snipes, and you go to jail for not paying income taxes. So they're going to take that code right out of the IRS code and plop it into Obamacare. So if you don't buy health insurance, we're going to put you to jail after we put 5 years of fines on you. Conservatives just rose up and said, you can't do that. You can't do that. We're not going to allow you to do that. So they couldn't do it. They took it out, which presented a unique problem for Barack Obama. Because now he can't put any fines on you. He can put fines on you, but he can't put any. He can't put a lien on your property. He can't send you to jail. There's no criminal penalties. So he said, I know how I'll fix it. I'll empower the IRS. And what I'll do is, if you don't buy health insurance, I'll tell the IRS to not give you a tax refund. We're going to hold your tax refund unless you buy Obamacare-approved health insurance. Now, how many people in this nation, on a percentage basis, actually pay income taxes? 51%. The other 49% pay no income taxes. So how do you hold a tax refund from somebody who doesn't pay taxes? So who's really going to be paying for all of this? Those of us who are already paying income taxes, right? How much are we going to pay? $2.6 trillion.
And I can make a firm pledge, under my plan, no family making less than $250,000 a year will see any form of tax increase. Not your income tax, not your payroll tax, not your capital gains taxes, not any of your taxes.
Really? Is that true?
No.
What did the president say? My law is going to add $568 billion to our taxes. That's going to be the increase in taxes. It's not going to be anybody making, in the middle income levels. It's all going to be taxing the rich, according to the CBO's numbers, $560 billion. The reality is, Obamacare tax will hit 3 million middle-class Americans. Not rich people, middle class. Here's all the taxes. This is what we were told in 2010, that the taxes would be $569.3 billion, right? Less than $600 billion. Can you all see that? 569.2. That's what we were told in 2010. Then last year, the CBO decided to rescore the bill. And guess what? Taxes are now 1.058 trillion. So the number of taxes doubled from 2010 to 2014 because the CBO decided to accurately assess the actual cost of the healthcare law conveniently after the bill passed. So all of us will be paying higher taxes. And even if you're low income, if you don't buy the health insurance, you're going to pay the fine, which is a tax. I call it the robbers tax, because nobody named it. Nobody named the robbers tax. Nobody named the Obamacare tax. When John Roberts, Chief Justice John Roberts, led to go through, Article 1, Section 8 is very clear in the Constitution about what kind of taxes can be levied, right? He just said it's a tax, didn't name it, so I call it the Roberts tax. And here's how it works. You walk into a convenience store, and they ask you, would you like a pack of gum? And you say, no, thank you. And then they ask you for the $2.50 Roberts tax. Because it's a tax for non-compliance. It's a tax for doing nothing. How will they force us all to pay for it? By providing advance tax credits. The cost of health insurance, watch this. The cost of health insurance in 2014, Obamacare-approved health insurance, is going to be, this is an advanced calculator set up by Kaiser Institute. And the cost, as you'll see, for a family for health insurance, we're just going to plug in the numbers. The average income for a family of 4, according to the U.S. Census, you see I've been running numbers, was $51,089. Let's say that's a 45-year-old dad. They don't have employer-sponsored health insurance. It's a family of 4. Coverage from the employer is not provided. The cost for health insurance for them is going to be $14,245 a year. Okay? They will never, ever see this. You know what they're going to see? They're going to see this. $3,542. Because what's going to happen? The few, the proud, the 51% who pay income taxes will be giving that family an advanced premium tax credit of $10,703 a year. And what they're going to say is, Barack Obama magically did it with the unicorn fairy dust. He magically lowered cost of health insurance. I'm going to vote for him. And any Republican who takes away my $10,703 subsidy is evil. That's my concern, is that we're building a massive new subsidy. How many people are going to need these subsidies a year? 60 million people will qualify for an advanced premium tax credit. Where is this money coming from? We are on QE4 now, which means that we are printing money, $85 billion a month, so we can do what with it? Buy our own debt. That's what we're doing. Where is this money going to come from? Eventually, it's going to collapse. Then there's the employer mandate. If you have 50 or more employees, full-time, you got to buy health insurance, period. Got to do it. It's got to be Obamacare approved health insurance. If you don't do it, we're going to charge you a fine of $2,000 per employee, right? 40 million people will lose their health insurance because employers will far more easily pay a $2,000 fine than they will by providing health insurance. So I'm going to end it here. I'm not going to go into Medicaid and Medicare because this is a 90-minute presentation. I don't have the time. But I will answer those questions during Q&A. But just so you get an idea of what's coming. And this is what frustrates me the most. We have doctors and attorneys on Fox News, on CBS. Guess what we never had, ever, since the law was passed? A health insurance expert. Never. You know why? Because we know the president's lying. We know laws that were passed long before Obamacare that protect people with pre-existing conditions. We know the easy fix to protect everybody. We know the true cause of legislation. And the most pain in 2014 will be felt through your health insurance carrier, not your medical provider, which is why we've been suppressed. So I ask you to go to truthaboutobamacare.com so that you can engage our friends on the left and anybody else who doesn't know how this law is going to work, especially young people, because all of you will be paying for this. All of you. I'm not paying for it. Senior citizens won't pay for it. Yes, your Medicare benefits are being drastically cut under this president, but it's you people and your children who will be paying for all of it. So please engage people of your age because they're our future, and they're the ones that need to know the truth. And you'll find that at truthaboutobamacare.com. Thank you for listening. Want to do Q&A? Okay, Q&A, folks. Yes, there are brochures and cards about me in the front. Yes, Tom.
A lot of people justify it because of the insane profits the insurance companies made over the years. Could you speak on that?
Yes, I could, yes. It's funny how they don't look at Apple's profit margin, which is gigantic. They just look at United Healthcare, they look at Humana, Cigna, Aetna, et cetera, et cetera. The profit margin for health insurance companies is less than 2%, okay? It's not a big profit margin. And most of those profits go to what's called portfolios, investment portfolios. So when you demonize health insurance companies, you're really demonizing the American people because most of the big health insurance carriers are publicly held corporations. And they not only must invest in the stock market and do so wisely, but they also have to have massive reserves in place mandated by the state. So if Tom comes down with cancer or leukemia, that money has to be there. Leukemia is cancer. That money has to be there to pay that claim. And so the profit margins are very small and minuscule compared to Apple Computers, which has a massive profit margin. Microsoft Computers, Pepsi, Coca-Cola. If you look at the breakdown, the health insurers, their profit margins are small compared to the others, especially because they're overregulated more than anybody else. Anyone else? Dr. Neal.
Steve, what do you think is the future for health insurance companies? Do you think that they're gonna survive in the end? Because with premiums skyrocketing, this is gonna be another crisis. Then the question is, how do we address this? You know, be either with the government taking over, or it will be with more real market reforms. What do you see happening?
I see 5 carriers left in as little as 2 to 5 years. 5 insurance carriers left, the big ones. We've already lost, like I told you, 20 already, they're gone. So I see United Healthcare, possibly Humana, Cigna, Aetna, about 5. What will happen is, eventually, they will become public utilities because they'll have to be subsidized so much. Understand what we're doing with these advanced premium tax credits, that $10,800 I showed you just for that one family? Where's that going? That's printed and then given to health insurance companies. Printed and given to health insurance. This is the greatest transfer of wealth from the taxpayer and the U.S. Treasury to private health insurance companies in U.S. history. So when you have that much control over the insurance carrier, not just in mandates and regulations, but in providing their primary funding source, eventually all the small carriers will fall away. United Healthcare has been buying up these small companies in the last 4 years. They go out of business, we'll take you. American Medical Security, doesn't matter who it is. American Community out of Michigan, we'll take you. We'll take all your business. We're building a gigantic conglomeration, just like we've done with hospitals. In hospitals, you know, since 1992, the Federal Trade Commission has not blocked a hospital merger, not once. So what hospitals are doing is they're just buying up all of these other smaller community surgical centers. All these doctors are coming in, working under the ACO, Accountable Care Organization, right? They're building a monopoly. And every time you do that, you're doing what? You're killing competition. And that's exactly what's happening. The same thing, Mark, will happen with insurance carriers. It has to. It just simply has to. The smaller ones cannot operate now. You can't do it at 15% in total operating margin, unless you are United Healthcare with billions and billions of assets. So that's the problem, yes?
I have a question, Steve, on that tax-deferred medical savings account.
Yeah.
The family that goes into one of those plans, who controls the money that is building within that?
They do. Yeah, they
Okay.
can pick their own administrator.
Okay,
I recommend the National Cattlemen Trust Bank of Nebraska.
okay,
They have something called the No Bull HSA.
okay.
It's unbelievable. That's all they do is herd cows and offer HSA, administrative HSA. And they get a full 1% on balances.
And
Nobody does it.
Do all companies have to offer those kinds of plans?
They do not. They
So
should.
you've got to dig through somebody like yourself that knows where to get them.
To find one. Yeah, most companies have
And
them.
hope they don't close up.
Correct. Well,
Because if they're gonna end
unfortunately,
up with 5 in a relatively short period of time, you wanna make sure you're with some company that's got the assets backing
Yes,
them
you want
for
a
the
big
longer
carrier.
haul.
you want a big carrier, you don't want a small carrier.
Okay,
And there aren't a lot of smalls left.
no,
I
that's.
mean, they're just
what's-
folding and the bigger ones are buying them.
Okay,
But you control that money. But Obamacare is also making FSAs, flexible spending accounts,
Right.
less attractive
Right.
by limiting how much that you can use it for
Right.
over-the-counter medications.
got your
Children with
wallet.
special needs, parents with special needs are gonna
Yeah.
suffer greatly under that. So what's gonna happen with the future of HSAs? I don't know. But I'm not hopeful unless the law is repealed. Charlie?
I'll go and then Nick will be the last question, but, you know, during the election, President Obama bragged that kids can stay on their parents' plan until they're 26. Do you want to kind of elaborate on
Yes,
that?
yes.
Because especially with this audience, I think.
Yes, that was not a new idea, okay? In Illinois, for years, children could stay on their parents' policy till they're 26, even 30 if you're in the military. In most states around the country, children could stay on their parents' policies till they're 25, 26, 28, 30 in the military. The law did not do anything new. It just said all states have to do it. The vast majority of states already did that. So that was not a new concept. Yes, sir.
It seems to me that people who get their health insurance through their employer are a bit stuck. But for people who buy their health insurance themselves, my family buys our health insurance. Most of the people in my industry that we work in buys their own health insurance.
Yeah.
And we were very concerned about Obamacare. What would be your suggestion as a health insurance expert of where we should look to, or what kind of thing we should do to kind of work around Obamacare?
Okay, I'll give you short term. Short term, until 2014, buy individual policy from one company only. This is contrary to my nature to even recommend this because I've been a broker for 17 years. I shop all these plans. I pick the best one, and I recommend that, right? Because United Health One, golden rule, is staying out of the exchange, they're going to be able to deliver products outside the exchange that are completely different in design. All they have to have is the essential health benefits, preventative care, and keep kids on to their 26, which, by the way, was already the law before Obamacare. Okay, that's it. And they can set deductibles where they want to have them. So United Health One, by making a bold choice not to go in the exchanges, that's a company to pick until 2014. And then if you're an employer, get yourself a Section 125 cafeteria plan so that you are offering legally a defined contribution for each employee, and you set what it is. I talked about this before, $200 for an employee, $400 for a husband, wife, $700 for family, whatever it is.
What was that company name?
A Section 125 cafeteria plan. It's a section of the IRS code. And what it does is it allows the employer, okay, especially people with 50 or more employees, but any employer, employers cannot now legally offer individual health insurance plans to their employees. They cannot do so if they pay for it directly. Because not only are they creating a taxable event, because remember, thanks to World War II laws, health insurance through an employer is tax deductible. Individual health insurance has no benefits like employer plans do. So when you're an employer and you say, I'm going to give you a defined benefit, $200, $400, $600, right? You're creating a taxable event for them because you're giving them individual health insurance. That violates Department of Labor law, okay? So the way to get around that, and it also means that you're endorsing the plan, which you cannot do by directly paying for it, is that you open a Section 125 cafeteria plan. And that's nothing more than an account that the employer has, that he puts money into that tax-deferred account. Now, the employees all buy their own health insurance with their own money, and then they're immediately reimbursed with money from the cafeteria plan. When you do that, you as an employer, number one, are not endorsing the plan. Number two, you create no taxable event for your employees. That's the smartest thing you can do. Instead of buying one group plan for everybody, I'll tell you, it's the worst thing you can do. You're a body shop, you've got 7 people, you've got a guy in the back who's putting Bondo on cars. But he's a chain smoker and he's 400 pounds with a family history of heart disease. Because he's on your group, if he files a claim for cancer, your rates go up dramatically. In most states, they can go up by 67% at the time of underwriting and 1.25% every year thereafter. If you go eastbound to Indiana, it's 108%. If you go to Massachusetts, it's 300%. So small employers, do not buy group health insurance. Put a Section 125 in place. Call me, we'll do it. And then buy individual health insurance plans. Best advice I can give.
Good.
Anybody else?
All right, thank you guys for coming. Make sure you check out our website and all the exciting things that we're doing. Make sure to go to balancedclassroom.org. We're really going to ramp up the promotion of that this week and the implementation. We're going to lobby for it in a lot of local school districts, school boards in this area. We're going to make sure it gets passed because those of you that know, who knows who Paul Krugman is? He writes a majority of the economics textbooks here in Northern Illinois. And to get that removed, we have to start towards real school reform. And we need to make sure that kids are not being ostracized due to their beliefs. But we're doing a lot of exciting stuff. Take as many of those economic misses you want. We're still editing some parts of it, and it's going to be finished within the next week. It'll be on our website. You can share it. And there's lots of different ways you can get involved, young and old. We're doing a lot of exciting stuff. So please talk to anybody standing around here with the pins. Again, thank you, Crystal, for planning this. And thank you all for coming. Tucker is a great job. And I hope to see you guys soon. So thank you.